So we are continuing the drugs which has been approved in the year 2018. To start with, we are going to see a few drugs, antiviral drugs, which has been approved in the year 2018. To start with, it is Bloxibir Marboxil, which has been indicated for uncomplicated influenza virus. But there are drugs called oseltamivir, which is a neuraminidase inhibitors, which basically inhibit the viral release. But this new drug, which is Bloxibir Marboxil, acts through a unique mechanism which stops the mRNA synthesis. This is by inhibiting the cap-dependent endonucleases, which is responsible for something called cap snatching. Okay, so this drug inhibits cap snatching, a very important mechanism of action, because the other influenza drugs usually they act on the neuraminidase and thereby they prevent the release of virus, but here this drug stops the initial step of mRNA synthesis. So they are going to inhibit the cap dependent endonucleases, which is responsible for cap snatching. Okay, moving on to the second drug. This is a very important drug because this is a drug approved for bioterrorism, and this drug has been approved by the US FDA for any bioterrorism attack with smallpox virus. So another important significant move from the FDA by approving a drug for bioterrorism, that is against smallpox, and it's going to be very mat. Okay. So the next one, the third one, it is doravirine. I don't think so it is more important for exams because already there is a class of drugs like etravirine. So here it is non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitor, which is given for antiretroviral therapy. It is your HIV virus. Now moving on to the very important thing, the next class of drugs, it's going to be the newly introduced tyrosine kinase inhibitors. There are around 6 to 7 drugs which has been recently approved by the FDA, and it's worth taking note of these drugs before going for JIPMA exam. So the first drug, it's going to be baricitinib. Baricitinib is a drug which is going to block Janus kinase 1 and Janus kinase 2. Whereas Janus kinase 3, you have a drug called tofacitinib, which is also given for rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, so baricitinib is a drug which inhibits Janus kinase 1 and 2, and it is going to be used for rheumatoid arthritis. Next, we are moving on to tyrosine kinase inhibitors, that is a small molecule kinase inhibitors with relation to growth factors. To start with, it is epidermal growth factor. So we are going to see the recurrently introduced drug dacometinib. Okay, this dacometinib is a irreversible inhibitor of your EGFR small molecule kinase. Dacometinib is the recently introduced irreversible inhibitor of your EGFR. Okay, now moving on to the other drugs, you find the pathway of EGFR from tyrosine kinase, it moves to KRAS, then Braf, MEK, you find the ERK, and this is how the pathway takes place for the cancer production. Now you can inhibit still a few factors like Braf and MEK, which we see here. There are 2 drugs which have been already introduced as Braf inhibitors, dabrafenib, vemurafenib. They have been used for malignant melanoma, but right now the recent drug which has been approved in 2018 is encorafenib. Encorafenib inhibits your Braf, and it has been indicated in metastatic melanoma. Okay, so down Braf you find MEC. You have two drugs which has been already approved in before 2018 which inhibit MEC. Those two drugs which inhibit MEC are your tramtinib and cobimetinib. Now 2018 drug which inhibits MEC inhibition is benimetinib. Benimetinib is a drug which is again approved for metastatic melanoma. Okay, so please remember these drugs, trammetinib and cobimetinib. You have the word ME, and here it is MEC. Okay, so the new drug benimetinib comes under MEC inhibition, and it is used for metastatic melanoma. So you find ME melanoma, and it also goes for MEC. Okay. So the next we are coming across the next one which is anaplastic lymphoma kinase inhibitors. Already introduced drug is crizotinib, and right now in 2018, very recently in September, they have introduced loratinib. Okay, so what they are going to do is that they are going to inhibit the anaplastic lymphoma kinase and ROS1, that is your CROS oncogene 1. Okay, so it has been approved for non-small cell lung carcinomas, and loratinib is an orphan drug which is being specifically used in non-small cell lung carcinomas. Okay, moving on to the next drug, it's a unique drug, ivosidenib. Ivosidenib has been approved for your mutant IDH, which is going to cause AML. Okay, it has been approved for your AML, and to a specific AML which is producing a refractory AML, which is due to the mutant isocitrate dehydrogenase 1. So isocitrate, I stands for iso, and you have the isocitrate dehydrogenase 1 inhibitor, and this mutant isocitrate dehydrogenase inhibitor actually produces your AML, and this is one drug which has been approved again in 2018 for AML. Okay, moving on to another tyrosine kinase inhibitor. It's going to be the inhibitor of an enzyme called spleen tyrosine kinase, SYK inhibition. Okay, SYK inhibitor. Okay, fostatinib. This drug is a prodrug which gets converted to tamatinib, and by converting to tamatinib, it is going to inhibit the enzyme spleen tyrosine kinases. So it is used in the treatment of chronic immune thrombocytopenia. Okay, moving on to the next drug, it is going to be duvelisib. Okay, so this comes specifically under PI3K mTOR pathway inhibition. So what is this PI3K? What are the other drugs which has been already introduced? And the other drug which inhibits this PI3K is idalalisib. It is used for a refractory CLL. Okay, it is idalalisib. You have the two L's over here. You can find two L's over here, and it is used for refractory CLL. And this drug duvelisib, which is again a congener of idalalisib, introduced in the year 2018, which also inhibits the enzyme phosphoinositide 3 kinase inhibition, and it is also used for the treatment of refractory CLL. Okay, now moving on to one respiratory drug which has been approved for COPD. It is revifenacin. It's a lung selective, long acting muscarinic antagonist. Okay, it's a lung selective, long acting muscarinic antagonist, and it is given in the form of a nebulization, and it is a good drug for treating COPD. Now let us see some gene therapies which has been introduced in the year 2018. So gene therapies, you can expect few questions from gene therapies. So we'll start with gene therapies.